It is the middle of a long afternoon, and there is nothing you have to do. The hunt ended hours ago. The meat is shared. The fire is low and patient. You sit in the shade with the others, and the day stretches out in front of you with no clock to break it into pieces. No phone in your hand, no book to open, no screen glowing anywhere on earth, because none of it exists yet. You have nothing to fill the hours but other people, the open land, and your own two hands. And here's the strange part. You are not bored. For 99% of human history, this was the shape of an ordinary day. No schedule, no notifications, no manufactured things to keep your attention busy. Just empty time in enormous quantities. Now compare that to us. The average person today checks their phone somewhere around 100 or more times a day, and we have more films, games, and feeds than any humans who have ever lived. And yet surveys keep finding the same thing. A huge share of people say they feel bored on a regular basis. So here's the question. Our ancestors had far more free time than we do and almost nothing to fill it with. Did they spend those endless hours bored out of their minds? Let's start with what we know for certain. In 1968, the anthropologist Marshall Sahlins stood up at a now-famous symposium and made a claim that turned the field on its head. He called hunter-gatherers the original Affluent Society. His argument was simple and shocking. We picture our ancestors as desperate, starving, scraping the dirt from dawn to dusk. But the actual field data told a different story. Foragers met their needs with surprisingly little effort, and were left with a great deal of time on their hands. Affluence, Sahlins argued, is not about having a lot. It is about wanting little and getting it easily. And by that measure, the people with no possessions at all were among the most affluent humans who ever lived. This was not just one man's theory. The anthropologist James Suzman spent years living with the Jew hoansi of the Kalahari, and he documents it in his book Affluence Without Abundance. His finding echoes the early studies. The actual work of finding food often took something like 15 to 20 hours a week, far across the continent. The Hadza of Tanzania, studied by Frank Marlowe, show a similar pattern, relatively short foraging days and a great deal of time left over. Different peoples, different deserts, same result. The free time was real and it was vast. Now, some of you are thinking, surely all that empty time means they were bored stiff. Fair question. It is exactly what we would expect, sitting where we sit, looking at our own lives. But that assumption hides a mistake. We are imagining their free time as if it were our free time, quiet, solitary, and waiting to be filled by something external. Their downtime was nothing like that. So before we decide they were bored, we have to actually look at what they did with all those hours. The first thing to understand is that their idle time was almost never spent alone. Anthropologists who lived in these camps described time soaked in conversation, talk, gossip, argument, and laughter running through the whole day. A huge share of that talk was about other people, the social glue that held a band together. Where we scroll past 1,000 strangers, they sat inside a web of faces they had known their entire lives. The empty afternoon was not empty at all. It was full of the one thing humans crave most: each other. And that craving runs deeper than any feed. The second thing is that they were makers. So-called rest was threaded with the steady craft of survival, knapping stone, mending nets, carving shafts, working hides, weaving fibers. These were not chores crammed into a busy schedule. They were slow, skilled, absorbing work done by hand, often while talking. Psychologists have a word for that fully absorbed state where time disappears. They call it flow, and it is one of the most satisfying experiences a human can have. Their downtime was stitched through with exactly the kind of self-directed making that our screens have quietly taken away from us. And the third thing is the richest of all: the night. When the light went, the camp gathered and the hours filled with story, song, dance, and ritual. Researchers studying the Jew hoansi found that daytime talk was practical, but firelight talk turned to stories, myth, and the imagination. This was their theater, their music, their religion, and their library, all at once performed live and remembered by heart. Which raises an uncomfortable question about us. If their empty time was that full, then what exactly is ours? Because boredom, it turns out, is not simply what happens when you have nothing to do. The psychologist Sandi Mann, who has studied boredom for years, describes it as a signal, a restless sense that you want stimulation and cannot find meaning in what is in front of you. Interestingly, her work also suggests that being bored can be good for us, pushing the mind to wander and create. But the modern version may be something stranger. We have flooded ourselves with constant passive high-intensity stimulation. And against that flood, ordinary life starts to feel flat, and our tolerance for stillness quietly collapses. Which means you, today, are bored in a way your ancestors almost certainly were not. Not because your life is emptier than theirs, because it is louder. Their free time was social, physical, made by hand, and rich with meaning. Ours is often solitary, still, and handed to us through glass. They had more nothing to do than you will ever have, and far less of the feeling you call boredom. So picture that long afternoon again, the low fire, the shared meat, the hours with no clock and nothing you must do. You have more entertainment in your pocket right now than every human before you combined. And still, some afternoons, you feel that familiar itch. The boredom was never about how much you had to do. It was about everything that ancient stillness was quietly full of, that ours is not.